best estimates, and what we decided to do based on feedback this time was to provide low range and high range estimates to try and give some sort of flexibility as to what's there, to communicate to the community what the range of movements might be, what we might expect. You know, all we are required to do is provide best estimates. I mean, if growth is higher than that, that doesn't mean that more aircraft can't fly in. What we try and do is try and project to the community what we think is reasonable, and that's what's in there.
Okay. So, Rob and then
yeah, I've got another question for Tom. Sorry that you're sitting in the audience and copying all these questions, Tom. But given that most of the concern here seems to be about nighttime noise, I'm just wondering about what the economic return is in relation to the proposed nighttime freight activities compared to what the usual commercial tourist traffic that you have at the airport. I know the master plan gave some general projections, but have you done any definite planning or pricing about what the proportion of your nighttime freight return would be in comparison to the overall commercial daytime operations?
We haven't at this stage. Certainly the interest from the business sector and from the ACT government is that having some sort of freight operation in Canberra will be very, very important strategically for Canberra. The reason why that is a lot of people have the view that Canberra really is out of the way in terms of trade. It's off the main route between Sydney and Melbourne. You know, it's not on the Hume. It's not on a sea route at all. So the view for a lot of people is that some sort of a facility like this would really place Canberra in a strategic situation. Certainly a freight hub means for Canberra businesses that if you have an overnight freight hub and you can have businesses which instead of having to get freight on an aircraft or freight into the mail at about 4 or 5 or 6 p.m, they wouldn't need to put freight into the mail until or into the system until 11 p.m. or something like that. So that would present a huge strategic benefit for just-in-time type industries, service industries and the like. And that's really the attraction for the business community.
So can I just clarify, there hasn't been a cost-benefit analysis done on nighttime freight operations, nor a projection of what the return is to business, the economic return to business in relation to expanding to those nighttime activities?
The return will depend a lot on the actual price that you get, so it's very hard to do it.
Yeah. Is there a yes or a no on that question?
As I said, you can't do it at this point.
Okay. So Leslie, and then Ryan, and then Alan, and then Murray, and Jenny. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm happy to wait.
Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes left, so let's
We're out of time, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Out of ignorance. I just wondered, has there been a comparison made or correlation between the statistics that meant a curfew was imposed on Sydney? Is there a correlation between those situation there, the environmental impact there, and the environmental impact here, given the distance from the city to the airport here and the density of people? Isn't there a way of extrapolating out?
There's certainly some comparisons to make, and you apologise, and I actually apologise for me. I actually didn't come here to hijack the meeting. I came to listen and answering questions, but clearly some questions are directed at me.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were representing the proponent.
I came to the airport, but I didn't come to... You would have here to question these people, and I'm not trying to take over the meeting. But to answer your question, yes, there are some really good comparisons, and one of the unique things Canberra has is we don't have aircraft, we don't have homes on the flight paths, with the exception of a very small number, a number of homes in Geraldton, about 600 homes.
At present?
At present, that's right. There are plans down there to put a significant number of homes under flight paths. But we don't have homes under flight paths at the moment. The vast majority of that is all zoned rural. In most of these cities, in fact in all of these cities which have curfews, they have a significant number of homes under flight paths. And if you look at Sydney as a great example, Adelaide, Essendon, Gold Coast, all of these airports have homes right jammed under the flight path, right up against the runway, almost in most cases. So Canberra is in a very unique situation. In fact, if you have a look at all the major capital cities across Australia, Canberra is the one airport that has no homes on the flight paths, with the exception of a small number in Jerwombra. And the great thing about that is that we can, with new GPS-based technologies, we can fly around Jerwombra by flying slightly to the western Jerwombra, which actually does happen to be over the rural lands of Charlie. What we want to do is maintain that rural corridor so that those residents aren't impacted and keep the jet noise, or the absolute vast majority of that jet noise, in that rural corridor.
Tom, can I ask
we do
you
accept.
about a minute? Because there's
Sorry.
5 other questions to come in the next 5 minutes.
Having said that, we do accept, we don't hide from the fact, and the master plan doesn't hide from the fact that there are residents who aren't directly on the flight paths who are impacted.
Yeah.
We do say that. But in terms of, in comparison to other airports, Canberra is not impacted at all, and certainly it's not on the national radar because we are so different to what
You wouldn't be there.
Wouldn't that be an argument?
You wake up every morning
not to replicate what goes on. Wouldn't that be a good argument not to?
Well, it will be.
And our argument is that's right, you shouldn't build under flight paths, and that's what we should replicate. And I understand your argument's a bit different.
Can I ask if we could just move on, because we've got about 7 minutes of the meeting left and a few questions to get through.
Questions
Brian.
to Frank again. You're currently an advocate, obviously, for Queanbeyan. You're aspiring to be an advocate for the Molonglo. Who is going to be more affected by a jumbo jet that's landing at 2 or 3 in the morning? A development that's more than 10 kilometres away outside the ANF 25, the Australian standard for noise exposure, or the residents of Hackett and Campbell and the like that you're going to represent?
Look, the bottom line is that an aircraft flying over the top of your house, with my house in the middle of the day, with all the other background noise, whilst it's unpleasant, will be tolerated. Because there's so many other things going on. The lawnmower's going, your washing machine, garbage trucks picking up rubbish, trucks going up and down. And you've got a lot of background noise there, and an aircraft flying over is a bit annoying for a very short time. But that same aircraft flying over in the middle of the night, when there's no movement outside, there's no lawnmowers going, no trucks moving, that noise will be multiplied 4 or 5-fold. There's no shadow of a doubt. And that's what I'm really talking about. Whilst most of us can tolerate a noisy aircraft during daylight hours, it'll be a different story in the middle of the night. And it's not only going to affect places like Queanbeyan and Narrabundah, where I'll be living very shortly, but it's going to affect suburbs out here and suburbs of Kingston and all the areas in between Campbell. Because, I mean, I don't know whether you get the very small plane that comes in with the mail or the newspapers in the middle of the night. Now, I can hear that, but during the day you can see it, but you can't hear it. And it's the same amount of noise, except that you've got all these other competing noises and it gets lost in all that. But in the middle of the night you can hear even one of those tiny little planes. And when you've got jumbos coming in with loads and taking off with loads, you're going to really notice that they're there.
Okay. So we've got, sorry, did you want to add something?
Yeah, just to add to that, the mode of operation of the airport is also relevant in this. Currently, after about 6, 7 p.m, when the afternoon peak eases off at the airport, and as long as weather conditions allow, that is if it's calm, aircraft come past us, down past Mount Majura to land on the runway. But then they turn off and take off this way. Now, if that's going to be maintained for aircraft between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m, and it's a 747, we will be getting both the landing noise and the departure noise.
Yeah.
We'll be copying it both ways.
And the
Okay. Brian, you have a question?
I've asked.
You finished?
That was mine.
That's easy, Alan.
Yeah, a question to Tom actually, and more power to you for turning up at this meeting, Tom. It takes some gumption given the situation. Curfew for Canberra recognise that the airport's an important social and economic contributor to the capital.